is the truth about wholeness and disability. And I think sometimes we may have a habit of looking at someone and, maybe thinking less of them because they live on the street, or thinking less of them because they're dressed in an unusual way, or think less of them because they're walking so slowly across the crosswalk with their cane, or, well, aren't there a million different ways that we can think less of somebody else? That we can judge that somehow, because we see something different in them, that somehow that makes them less than me or less than us. So what I want to talk about today is the fact that every one of us is perfect, whole, and complete. And regardless of how we show up, that can't change. Now, our behaviors, of course, can be questionable at times. And so we have to work on that maybe. But the idea of our wholeness is assured. We are spiritual beings and we're having a human experience. Now, if every single one of us said a little prayer that says, I'm healthy and I'm wealthy and I'm doing the job I love and I have the perfect family and all is well. If every single person had exactly the same mission, the same interests, the same everything, what a boring world this would be. I mean, who'd want to be here? The fact that we are all unique. All of us are unique. All of us are unique and special. So I remember, and I know I've shared this story before, but I remember a young family. Their son played baseball with my son, and they had a disabled child who was about 3 or 4 at the time, and was unable to walk. Well, he was unable to do anything except smile. That was kind of the only thing he could do on his own. And he did that a lot. And I spoke to the family and I said, wow, it must be so hard to have a child so disabled. And they just said, he's lived longer than we expected. And we are grateful for every single day because he has taught us so much. And really what they were saying is we learned to look at life and people in a new way through this beloved child who was always smiling. There's something that we need to do to get beyond our predetermined, ideas of what is good and what is bad, and begin to see that all of life is moving. All of life is changing and evolving, and there's this constant movement and motion. And we sometimes can look at that as, it's something I don't like. It's something I'm uncomfortable with. Well, maybe we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I know that sounds a bit like an oxymoron, but the truth is that each and every one of us has the ability to love. And it doesn't mean that I like everything. Like I might not like oysters, but I love it when they're in the ocean away from me. I know some people love to eat them, not me, but it's like that doesn't change the value of the oyster. When we walk down the street and we see a homeless person asking for change, we might have all kinds of ideas about this individual. Possibly. But what if we saw them as the divine, unique being that they are, as the individualized expression of spirit that they are, and maybe asked ourselves, what is the gift that I'm receiving by having a conversation with this individual, or by giving them a little bit of money? I remember many years ago in a previous lifetime, not really, but I was married at one time to an alcoholic, and that was a very difficult time in my life. When I got out of that relationship, probably been, I'd say about 2 years, I was headed downtown one day, headed to my classes, and I just had the thought that I would run into somebody who needs a little bit of cash. So I took the coins out of my wallet, stuck them in my jeans pocket, and continued on my way. When I was walking toward the center, as I'm walking down the street, I notice a man ahead. Now, prior to this moment, I had an incredible fear of anyone who was drinking, anyone who smelled of alcohol. I immediately got scared. But I've been working on myself. I was, improving my situation, I think. So I'm walking along and I see this man, and he's kind of stumbling a little bit, and he's asking people for money. And, everybody's kind of looking the other way and walking past him. And I thought, oh, this is who the money's for. So when he got up to me, I took the money out of my pocket and I took his hand and I put the money in it and I held his hand. Now his eyes were looking at the street. He was looking down at the sidewalk. And I held his hand. And all of a sudden he looked up, because I think that surprised him. And I said, "You have a most beautiful day." And I walked away. Now, there may have been $3 or $4 in change in his hand, but that's not what I gave him. What I gave him was love. In my mind, this was a human being asking for help. Now, the help he wanted might be different than the help I want to give, right? I might sit back and go, oh, what if he goes and buys a bottle? I don't care what he does with the money. The money that I gave him, I gave with love. Pardon me. As we give our energy out into the world, it should always be with the energy of love. And when we do that, we don't know the impact. But when we recognize that this entire universe is an energy system, we can't see energy, but we know it's there. And when I gave that man that gift, when he looked me in the eye, I didn't see somebody who was drunk and disorderly. I saw a human being. Looking into his eyes was a powerful moment for me because it ended my fear of people who'd been drinking. That's powerful. It was in that moment I'd walked through the fire, so to speak. But it was a powerful moment and changed my life immensely. What happened to him, I really don't know. But when we discover the truth about disability and wholeness, a topic that generally doesn't come up in these centers, what we realize is we're overlooking certain people in our community. As we realize that every person is living their life to the best of their ability based on who they are and what they came here to do. And I have no information about that. So for me to judge what they're doing or how they're doing it would be ignorance on my part, because I have no knowledge. So what I want to talk about is the fact that if we can begin to recognize our own wholeness, if we can move past our shame and our fear, the doubts we might have about ourselves, if we can come to accept ourselves fully, what happens is it makes it easier for us then to accept others, which is really what's going to create a world that actually works for the highest and best good of all. So in the science of mind, we believe that every person is an individualization of the one spirit. So it doesn't matter about physical abilities or mental abilities. And wholeness is not determined by physical conditions or by recognizing the inherent spiritual essence within each person. Disabilities and differences are understood as unique expressions of the one spirit or God or universe, whatever word you want to use. And physical or mental conditions do not limit a person's worth or spiritual potential. Yeah, take that in. Take that in. Because I think sometimes we judge and we get into a teaching like this and we learn certain things and we go, oh, I know who could use this. Yeah. Yeah, I know who could use this. You know, my friend so and so, well, if they just got this, then they would be. It's kind of judgmental, isn't it? We all do it. We all do it. We all learn something and think of somebody else that we could uh, help them, that this would benefit them. But one of the things we're really clear about in Science Mind is that each of us must do our work individually on our own timeline and timetable. So I may think that learning how to do spiritual mind treatment would help somebody, but unless that somebody asks for that information, it's none of my business. So here's what I've found to be helpful to me is if I stay in my own lane, okay, if I look at my life and start exploring my challenges, my difficulties, all the things going on in my life, if I take the time to really learn about me and be honest with me and stand in integrity and show up as my real self, I then make it possible for others to do the same. I also have within me the ability and the understanding that the work is individual and that each person must live in their own lane. Now, we don't do that as a rule. Now, I'm a mother of 4. And you want to know, through the years, there were many, many times that I told my children, you should do this, or you should. Anybody ever tell you should do something, be something? I had lots of people tell me what I should do or what I should be. No one ever told me to be a minister. Not a single soul. Salesperson, yes. Minister, no. And here I am, 25 years later. Life is happening, and life is a constant flow of energy moving in many, many directions. And most of what's going on is unexpected. We took a trip this summer to Nova Scotia, me and my children, a couple of my grandchildren. And when we were heading to the ferry to go to PEI, we're sitting at a restaurant and my daughter gets an alert that one of her friends is in the vicinity. Now, this is a friend who moved to Nova Scotia 2 years ago. This is a friend that we had hoped to catch up with while we were there, but nothing worked out. We couldn't make it happen. We're sitting in this restaurant. She gets an alert that her friend is like a couple blocks away at Giant Tiger. Say, what? So we drove over, ate our food, drove over there, and had a lovely visit. It's interesting how the universe works. And we are all planning and strategizing and trying to make stuff happen. And the truth is that we don't make anything happen. The energy of the universe is flowing, and it's flowing and moving constantly based on the consciousness of each individual. And of course, we're all a little bit intermingled. So, of course, my actions and reactions affect a myriad of people in front of me, just as yours do. And so, as we're journeying along, we want to remember that life is a constant flow. It's never stagnant. Even when it looks like it's stagnant, it's not. Things are moving, changing. I mean, don't watch the news. It's never got much good on it. But take the time to educate yourself. Take the time to learn what you need, what your greatest desire or dream is. Do you know what that is? And if you don't, well, I'm here to tell you actually do know, but there's obviously a part of you, a conscious part of you that's holding that idea at bay. So we want to make sure we bring that in. When we're talking about disabilities, the disabilities might actually be referred to instead as unique abilities, which is how I would refer to them. And I've had a number of opportunities in my life to experience my own disability. I had double hip replacement. So I spent a few years with a cane, with a walker. I've been pushed around in a wheelchair for years. And a little over 2 years ago, through prayer, I healed that. And I spent the next 2 years pain-free. But while I was in that situation, I would be at maybe a conference using my walker and irritating people to no end. Yes, because I'm walking slowly, or they're standing in the hallway chatting and I need to get past and I need more room than just to squeeze in behind them. And it was fascinating to watch that in spiritual community. In the real world, I'd go, oh, okay, but spiritual community? And I think that's why the message needs to be taught here today, that every single thing we experience is something that's adding value to our life experience. So even me using a walker was adding value. Now, I don't know exactly what that value was, but I'll tell you something. If I come up to a red light and there's a pedestrian crossing with a walker and the light turns green, I lovingly and patiently wait for that individual to finish crossing. It never upsets me. Years ago, it did, because I was in a rush. I had things to do, got to get there, not anymore. So that experience had value. When we look at ADHD, for example, I'm definitely a little ADD person myself. And I was reading in an article today where they were talking about some of the gifts of it. And one of them is resilience. Now, having come out of COVID and all the things that are going on in our world right now, all the wars and the upheaval and what's happening in the United States with the election, all the things that are going on around us, resilience is a highly valuable asset. The other asset that ADHD people have is energy, lots of it. Well, often it'll drive other people crazy, but that energy is really powerful. So with everything, each of us individually has to figure out how to deal with our own abilities, our own unique, individualized expression of spirit. Each one of us gets to do our own work. When we're focused on somebody else and what's wrong with them, what we're doing is we're avoiding what we believe is wrong with us. Let me repeat that. When we are pointing our fingers and saying what's wrong with the people around us, I invite you to take a pause, because you may well be avoiding what you believe, remember the word believe, is wrong with you. Take a deep breath. See, sometimes we're so busy pointing fingers, but we've forgotten there's a few more pointing back at us. And if we take the time to really reflect on our own journey and our own life and our own abilities, we start to see that what we judge as imperfect is probably something we were taught to see that way. So I remember as a really little girl, 5 or 6, something like that, one of our neighbors had a baby that had Down syndrome. And I didn't know anything about Downs. And my mom, obviously had feelings about that. And, she would talk about how unfortunate it was and how sad it was. And I never got a chance to get to know that young girl because I'm listening to my mom, and it made me afraid of her. Yeah, afraid of a little girl just because she has Down syndrome. Well, why is that? Well, part of it was my mom didn't understand Downs. I knew nothing about it, obviously, at 5 or 6 years old. So a lot of what we judge is, due to our inability, maybe, or our ignorance in the moment. Like, we just don't understand the condition. We don't understand what's going on. And maybe it's made us a bit fearful. And of course, when we get fearful, we tend to push people away. We tend to maybe get angry. There's a lot of things that come up out of our fear. So we just want to get understanding. If we spend our lives getting understanding that every individual is a unique individualization of God. Yes, I used that word. If you don't like it, you can translate it to spirit, universe, a divine mind, first cause. There's so many words that could be used. What we're here to do is it's all about embracing a perspective that fosters inclusivity, values the contributions of every individual, and challenges the societal norms. Now, normal is not a thing, okay? I have things that are normal in my life, but that doesn't make them normal for humanity. It just makes it normal for me. See, normal isn't a thing. You'll hear people every now and then go, I just want to be normal. Well, there's no such thing. So, ta-da, freedom. So we're being called to dismantle the barriers and to create spaces of love and acceptance and genuine inclusivity in our spiritual centers and beyond. Be sure to take it home, take it out into the world, share it, share it, share it. Like, share it even faster, bigger, and more beautiful than COVID. COVID wrapped around this planet with lightning speed. Imagine love and acceptance and inclusivity being the latest virus that infects all of humanity, lifting us into a place of acceptance and love, wonder, and imagination and creativity as we work together building life. Yes, sounds amazing, doesn't it? Well, who knows when that will happen? Ernest Holmes reminds us that we believe in the individualization of the spirit in us and that all people are individualizations of the one spirit. This is the truth of all life and every person, and not just some or those who were born into or maintain bodies that we deem perfect. Because we do that, don't we? I think back to a young man who was interviewed on Oprah, Matty Stepanek. Young man, I can't remember the name of his illness because it's like long, but he was only able to sit in his wheelchair and, speak. And I think he died at 14. He lived way beyond what most kids of his disorder will live. And what's interesting is he wrote books of poetry, and his poetry is all about his relationship with God and humanity. And he brought this incredible love, this incredible spirituality into the world. And luckily got on, I don't know if it was luck, but got on Oprah and was able to share that information with the world. He was a shining star and absolutely a perfect representation of a divine, gentle, beautiful being. Now, if you saw him on the street, you might go, oh, that poor kid. No, that poor kid brought joy and love and beauty to the world. And he did it in 14 short years and started when he was like 4 or 5. Like, he was at it a long time. Be sure to look him up. Matty Stepanek. when we begin to see people and to take the time to get to know them, there's a shift that happens. There's a change that occurs within ourselves and within them. We become happier people. They feel better. Everybody wins. So when you see somebody in a wheelchair, don't go, oh, that poor soul. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not helpful. The words that we speak, the ideas that we think, energy. And that energy is moving out and back. There's a constant flow that's happening. And when I use language that would diminish another person, just remember everything that I speak and think comes back to me multiplied and overflowing. So if I'm judging someone else in a negative way, that negativity will impact me. All right. So there's great value in being positive and upbeat and kind and respectful. According to principle, disability is understood as a unique expression of the one spirit. Wow. Ernest Holmes teaches emphasis that every person without exception is an individualization of God. And this means that the inherent spiritual essence within each person, regardless of physical or mental abilities, remains whole and complete. And the science mind recognizes that physical and mental conditions, they don't define the person's worth or limit their spiritual potential. Indeed, it focuses on the divine nature within each individual and their ability to express their unique gifts and talents in the world. So when we come into this, what we come to realize is that every single person is bringing something into the universe right now that only they could bring in the manner that they bring it. And it is essential to the unfolding of this divine universe. Essential, not extra. Essential. So when we start to see every person as essential, then maybe we can look at their life experience and what's going on for them and look at ways that we can add love rather than to take it away. I was watching America's Got Talent, and there's a young man, a hip hop dancer with one leg, and he was striving to be a soccer player, football player. And something happened. I can't remember what it was, that he lost his leg, and he lost the whole leg up to the hip. So he came on to America's Got Talent to dance. And wow, what a dancer. What a dancer. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but if you go on to YouTube, you can find it easy enough. But I'll tell you something, watching him, and I think his phrase was, no limits, no excuses. Now, somebody might look at this young man and go, oh, that poor fella lost his leg as a teenager. Yeah, couldn't play soccer anymore, but he could dance. And wow, can he dance? And he's made it through to the semifinals. So we look at people and we make a determination. We judge people because of their weight. We judge people because of their apparent limitations. We judge people for the manner in which they speak, how much money they earn, or the position that they hold. And I'm here to tell you that wholeness has got nothing to do with any of that. Wholeness is acknowledging, I am the I am. I am one with this divine presence. I am one with it. And therefore, the power of it is within me. And I express that easily, openly, lovingly. Expressing wholeness comes from our willingness to be seen. And sometimes we're busy projecting our hatred or negativity on someone else because we're afraid if people look at us, they'll see something flawed. And they might. But what they'd be seeing is the illusion, because there are no flaws. From the perspective of wholeness and oneness, disability is seen as a part of the diverse tapestry of human experience rather than a limitation or deficiency. Wholeness is not defined by the absence of physical or mental impairments, but rather by recognizing and honoring the inherent spiritual essence within each individual. There was a young man on, I think it was America Got Talent, last year, or the year before, autistic, blind. And he got on there and sat down and played the piano and sang, like, incredible, incredible gift. But had his parents looked at him when he was born and decided to label him as somebody who could never learn, grow, be of value, who knows how he would have ended up. But that young man is remarkable. He's a brilliant pianist and singer. And I do mean brilliant. His name was Cody. Can't remember his last name, but really a brilliant young man. It's time for us to review how we choose to view life, how we choose to see individuals. And if we begin to honor everybody as they are, where they are, just being themselves, and we start to see them as valuable members of the human family with a purpose and a journey to fulfill, that changes everything. I was in Calgary walking down Stephen Avenue Mall, and there was a woman pushing a shopping cart and asking people for change. And so I stopped and I gave her some money. And I said, "Oh, I hope you have a wonderful day." And she's like, "Why are you being kind to me?" Well, why not? She's like, "People have spit at me and yelled at me." And I said, "But by the grace of God, I could be you." The truth is, any one of us could be in a position we didn't expect at any point in time. Accidents happen. Things change. Are we ready to adapt, to be resilient, to move into our life expression with a greater sense of joy? Do we know that our body is supporting our purpose? So if our body has a disability, it's not a disability. It is the ability that will help us to create and accomplish our purpose. I mean, hey, take a look at Stephen Hawking. He's done pretty good. So we want to go beyond. We want to go beyond. And the way we do that is to begin right here. Love yourself so much that you have lots left to love others. Love yourself so much that you accept every aspect of your being as some unique, glorious ability to create and be in the world. Whether it's ADHD or autism or overweight or without a leg or whatever, doesn't really matter. All of it is your perfect expression, bringing you into a place of perfect wholeness as you accept your unique